I'm Bruce Reinig. I'm a faculty member in the College of Business. I teach in the MIS department there. And so today I want to share with you my experiences teaching MIS 301, Statistical Analysis. It's a junior level statistical analysis course for business students. And I've taught it online. I've taught 4 sections so far online. I taught 1 section in the summer of 2012, 100% online. And then in spring 2013, I taught 1 section where everything was online except the students came to campus to take exams. And then in the summer 2013, what we just finished, I taught 2 sections 100% online. And I'm really going to focus on that 100% online experience today primarily because I think that's what people are preparing for. And so I'm going to try and cover some of the things that have gone well for me and areas I've had to work on a little bit and share that with you. So why teach online? I always like to start with this slide. We always have different motivations for doing this. I think and it's kind of preaching to the choir, you've already jumped into it, but there really is a lot of good reasons to do this at San Diego State. And one I'll highlight because it happened just this last 6 weeks is during registration I had a student contact me and she said that she's pregnant, she's planning to have her baby in the 5th week of the 6-week course. And she wanted to know if I can get in the online section. I said, absolutely. And I said, we'll just have you go as long as it makes sense for you, and then I'll give you an incomplete for whatever you don't finish, and we'll finish it up afterwards. And so it kept on happening, and she was doing well in the course, and then she ended up having her baby on the day before the final exam. And so, which was presented no problem. So I gave her an incomplete. 2 weeks later, she finished the final. And what a terrific outcome. I mean, here at San Diego State that we can reach out to her, she can continue her education through that period and stay engaged. And I think the more we can kind of build models that accommodate those special circumstances, the better. So it's really, I appreciate the Course Development Institute, which has helped me, put the course together and participate that way. So it's really worked out well. The presentation overview, I'll focus on how I structure my course, some of the results I've had, and I'll try and close with some very specific action items that I would recommend you consider when going forward. This is just the overview of the course, and so the language that we use to describe what we teach is learning objectives or learning outcomes. And as much as I like to think my statistics course is so unique from all the other ones out there, it probably has a lot in common with the other statistics courses that are being taught. And I'm sure a lot of you have taken a class in statistics at one time. So these are the learning outcomes, and it's really something to focus on and guide your lectures. But that just gives you a quick overview of the goals of my class. So things like regression, hypothesis testing, probability theory, all of those types of things. In terms of the course technology, one thing I would really stress is to when you're looking strategically at putting your course together, separate content delivery from assessment. Don't try and do both at the same time. And I would really get overwhelmed at first thinking about the class and thinking about all the tools I need to use, and I would find myself jumping back and forth on those. They're really separate. And if you think of how you teach a class in a traditional classroom, those are separate activities. We know when we're in content delivery or discussion, and we know when we're in assessment. And so separate them and focus on content delivery first, put that together, and then build assessment. But don't try and do both at the same time. This is what I use, just about everything I use to teach the class. So I have the video lectures, so I give lectures on statistical analysis. This covers the course content. They're all lectures that I put together. I build PowerPoints and I record lectures of me explaining statistics with examples. And I also make videos of Excel demonstrations which show you how to use the techniques that I teach in the class. And that's the entirety of kind of the lecture component of it. And then to do that, so I use PowerPoint, Excel, Word, Adobe, different things, Camtasia Studio to record off my desktop, and all of those types of things. Then for assessment, I do everything in Blackboard. I have quizzes, I have case projects, exams, And the technology for that is Word, Correspondence. And there's a little snipping tool that I use. I don't know how many of you are familiar with that. It comes in Windows 7 or Windows 8. It turns out to be a great little tool to use in building online content because the images are very robust and they can be seen in Blackboard. And I've used different images that sometimes fail. And so that's a tool I like to point out. The one thing that's not here, which I'd like to point out, is the list does not include the homework that I assign my class. And I have a fairly traditional statistics textbook, which has answers in the back of the book. And so students are still doing those homework problems with their calculators, and they're sending me questions about those, and I email them back, and we do those types of things. But that's an overview of the technology that I use. And one of the things that I do at the beginning of the semester, before the semester even starts, is I send out an email, which I like to use to try and manage expectations and set expectations for the course. And I really try and address two aspects of the class. One is the technical requirements, to let them know you're going to be spending a lot of time watching fascinating video lectures on statistics. So to do that, you're going to need a reliable, high-speed internet connection. Do you have one? Do you have access to one? That's an expectation for you. Okay? You're also going to be taking a lot of assessments, so you have to have a reliable connection. And a lot of times, later I'll talk about times where there's a failure, like a browser failure in taking an assessment, but it's typically traced back to a break in an internet connection. Okay? And so if the students don't have that, the course is not going to work out well for them. And then I also like to tell them that, statistics, it's a demanding course. You really have to have the time to take this course in a 6-week period. If your learning style is better suited towards an in-class interaction, this might not be the best way to take it. After teaching it a few times online, I think online is a very good way to learn statistics and any quantitative content. And one of the reasons is when you explain a concept and you work through a problem, if a student doesn't completely grasp that idea, they can hit pause, they can go back, and they can play it again and again. I've had a number of students tell me how useful that is. They get a chance to hear it again, hear the explanation again, and so that part is useful. Yes?
You mentioned that it came up a little bit earlier too. We're talking about how to reach the diverse learners and things. One thing I think we forget is those students that we have that are not English as a first language learners, second language learners, they find that so helpful. They'll be able to go back and listen again for academic language and not understood.
Yeah, that's a great comment. No, it's.
I think we forget how frequently second language learners do that. It's really nice.
And that's interesting you say that, because I had a student come up to me Wednesday after class, and she's ESL, and in statistics you get terms that you've never heard before, like homoscedasticity, and there's nothing to attach that to. Okay, so that's a rough term for English speakers, and you get a non-English speaker. That's a real challenge. So it's a great comment to make. I'm going to show you the schedule of activities to see the flow of the class over the 6 weeks. And the way I organize my class, and a lot of the things that I did is I listened to the course development instructors, and then the other things that the other guest speakers talked about. And I picked up that modular approach that they recommend. It really it is really useful. And so on mine, you would see 6 folders: week 1, week 2, week 3, week 4, week 5, week 6. Each of them have the date range in the name of the folder. And so you come in, you click what week you're in, and you see your schedule. And I just wanted to show you what the schedule looked like. And just in the way I present this to you, I follow that same content on one half and assessment on the other. And I hadn't meant to do that intentionally, but I did, because it's the way I look at the course, is I'm delivering content and I'm also doing assessment. And so here's the first week. I covered the first 4 chapters. And this is I'm sticking with the summer 2012 schedule. And you'll notice I had assessments on Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday. Okay, and then Monday and Wednesday, there were no assessments. So I do quite a few assessments. And then week 2, I had assessments on Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday. Week 3 is the same schedule. Week 4, week 5, and then week 6 in summer 2012, it was a bit odd because it ended on a Wednesday. But I would highly recommend you follow the same assessment schedule, set it your first week, stick to it, so that when students are working their own schedules, they know what to expect from you. And that makes a big difference. So not forgetting to take quizzes, forgetting to take exams. But that's the general layout of the class. Oh, I even highlighted that. That's how important that is. All right. So this is what students see in Blackboard. I just did some screenshots. It is, I've never developed some of the additional tools that you saw with Steve, which are really nice. I'm really focused on the video content and building my videos and then doing my demonstrations in those videos. But if you came in and you clicked on week 3, then you would see the week 3 schedule. And I have a PDF file that's set up, and it's my PowerPoint lectures in a PDF file with the solutions missing. And in my traditional classroom, what I do is students print those out, they come to class, I lecture, we stop, and they solve problems, and they fill in the answers, then I show them the answers. And so I try and get my online students to do the same thing. And then they can click to watch the video, and following everything I learned from Andrea, I make the videos and I save them so you can view them in Windows or you can view them on your iPad. And then I have my quiz notices down here. So I've been setting my quizzes in my exams. I typically set them up where they're available at 12 a.m. or I should say 12:01 a.m. to midnight. And then I announce to the students that they're available from 12:01 a.m. to 10 p.m. But I have that 2-hour leg on the back. And the reason is there seems to be sometimes some misunderstanding about no matter how clear you are, some students think, if I have 2 hours to take the exam and the exam expires at 10 p.m., they don't always think that means I need to start at 8 p.m. And so, I saw some frustration on that, so I just changed it. I add 2 hours to the back end, and I say it ends at 10 p.m., and I leave that a little ambiguous, and it just eliminated all those problems for me. I like to give a big window to do your assessment. I mean, to me, that's part of the online experience, is they can work it around their schedules. And by having a stated deadline at 10 p.m., it means I can go to bed at 10 p.m. It means I can log in, I can see if anybody has a browser failure, and if I'm clean at that point, then I'm done for the evening, okay? So making videos in Camtasia Studio, you'll learn about doing this. If you give presentations in PowerPoint, I found it to be very handy to install the PowerPoint add-in. And so if I bring up PowerPoint on my computer and I put on this microphone, I can click that little record button and off I go, and I'm sitting at my desk, and you see the PowerPoint screen, and it's going to record my voice over what you see on my screen, including PowerPoint. It's been very handy versus if I'm doing Excel, for example, I define the part of the screen that's going to record, and I'm focused on that screen. But this has been an immensely useful tool to me. And I found that it probably works best for me when I'm making recordings to record small segments at a time and then stitch them together. All you have to do is line them up in Camtasia, and they'll put them together for you, versus trying to go a full 90 minutes at a shot. So I might do 20 minutes, 25 minutes. If I'm feeling really good, I might go 40 minutes. Then if I need a break, I take a break. And then I come back in and keep going. I record everything in 1280 by 720. And when I made my first recording, I don't know, is that what you recommend, Andrea?
we're actually having people use Camtasia Relay now, and it does all that for you. So the studio is a little more complicated, and you have to choose that.
Is that right?
Yeah.
And is that what you have to choose?
No, I mean, that one works. It sort
Okay.
of depends on what content you're covering.
Okay. At some point I had to make a choice, and I went out and did some research to figure out what should my resolution be. I can't remember exactly the rationale, but I landed on that number, and I've been sticking with it, and it works really well. And I don't know if it was what was recommended for iPads, I'm not sure, but I had to make a commitment, and so that's been handy. And since then, I've had people come by my office and say, what should I record in? And I say 1280 by 720. Learn how to use your microphone. If there's any place that I failed and experienced some frustration, it's with the microphone. I gave a lecture one time. It was an hour and 20 minutes long, so I have a couple lessons tied together. I got to the end of it. I was in on a Saturday morning to record it. I put my hands up. I said, I'm done. I hit play, and there was no sound there. And it was all flatlined at the bottom. And I just spoke for 120 minutes in my office to nobody. And so, you know, it's possible. So, you know, what you do is make sure that microphone's on. Don't ever suffer that failure. Just go right to that success factor. Make sure you see your audio moving, and you'll be amazed at what a difference. You only need to do that a couple times to learn that lesson. Building assessment activities. One thing that's worked out incredibly well for me is Respondus. I don't know if you've heard about Respondus yet, but you'll have a class on it. That was a huge breakthrough for me when and I wouldn't have learned about it had it not been part of the Course Development Institute, but that was just a tremendous advantage. And what Respondus does, if you've ever used Blackboard to make quizzes, it's very cumbersome. It's very difficult to actually build a quiz in Blackboard. But if you use Respondus, it lets you build your quizzes in Word. And Respondus is middleware, which goes from Word to Blackboard, and it works beautifully. The other thing you can do is a lot of the publishers have a test bank, which can tie directly into Respondus. And so I work in just how I would build an exam in a regular class in Word. I build that exam in Word for my online class, and it puts everything into Blackboard for me and distributes it. So I mean, for me, it's that Respondus assessment tool and that recording tool and the recording environment. And so here's what an exam looks like for me. It's my question, it's my possible answers. I tried to get rid of that fly, and I went back. Steve struggled mightily up there, and I just did okay. Is that a real?
That's a real fly,
Yeah, that's
and
a
the
real
person's
fly.
pointing right at it.
Okay.
Yeah.
You could never get that to happen in a million years.
Yeah. He's not.
Zoom in on the video. You're really good.
What happened is my presentation is so interesting that fly wants to be is drawn to it. But it's just a question. It's a set of answers, and I put an asterisk in front of the answers that's correct. Okay, that's it. And you'll have a few minor troubleshooting things you need to do the first time you use Respondus, but once you get in the habit, that's all you have to do. That'll read in. Now, if you're doing images, like here I'm presenting a null hypothesis and an alternative hypothesis, that's where I use that little snipping tool to save the image in there. The other thing I found myself doing now is when I do multiple choice questions, sometimes I'll have anywhere from 10 to 12 to 15 alternatives because there's no imposed limit by a Scantron. And so what I'm doing then is I'm building a better instrument because I'm eliminating the guess factor. I'm reducing the guess factor. And so in terms of an assessment tool, I feel like I have a better sense of what my students actually know because the guessing is not introducing some variation that it otherwise would on a Scantron test. And so this is what it looks like to take the exam. One of the things that I found interesting is when students would run into any problems, they would send me an email and say, you know, my browser crashed during the exam, what should I do? And I remember thinking, why are they contacting me? Why would I know the answer to that? And this is because this is the message they get. It says, you know, there's a failure. This test has not been submitted. Contact your instructor for assistance. That's you, all right? So you have to figure out how to reset exams, and it's really not that hard to do. You can go into Gradebook, you can reset it, and off they go. But the students really experience a lot of stress and anxiety during that time when that quiz crashes. And one of the things I kept track of, which I was really interested going in, was this idea of browser failure. And really that would also mean an internet connection failure. And I think, you know, you can do different things to mitigate that, such as using the Respondus Lockdown browser. I don't do that. They can use any tool they want to take my assessments. They can do it on an iPad. I know some do it on an iPhone, and that's okay with me. But I did keep track, and what you see here are 59 rows. Each row is a student, and then going across the top are all the assessments, and those are all the browser or internet connection failures that took place. And let me see if I can. There we go. So I had 944 student assessments, 911 without incident, 32 had one or more failures, 35 total failures. So for this class, the browser success rate was over 96%. The failure rate was just short of 4%. But you can see about 42% of the students had one or more failures. In terms of the quizzes with one or more failures, I think I gave 13 quizzes that particular semester, was about 69% and 100% failure. I shouldn't say 100% failure, but of the exams, 100% of them had one or more failures. Now, to give you some contrast to that, when in the spring, we ran a pilot study where students came to campus to take their exams using the Respondus Lockdown browser in the university library, and there on 4 exams, and each exam I had exactly one failure. And so that was lower than a 1% failure rate. So, and then in summer 2013, I haven't gone back to track the data, but I think this last summer I had a lower failure rate than this, frankly speaking. So I had 130 students this last summer, and this one was 59 students in 2012. And I would say with my 130 students, I had fewer browser failures than I did with 59 students. So the technology, in my experience, the technology is becoming more reliable. In terms of email correspondence, I mean, these are, I don't know if you like seeing details like this. When I was where you were at, I had thoughts in my head like that. But how many email messages am I going to get? I was just curious. I keep track of things like that. So in the 6-week course,
we're glad you're from the statistics.
yeah. You know, yeah, it wouldn't occur to me not to, right? You know, just throw out numbers. So on average, I get about 4 emails per student. And then a lot would come by and talk, you know, have questions as well. So some lessons learned. These are some advice I would give you in thinking about it. One thing I've mentioned is focus first on content and then move on to assessment. You don't have to build the whole course all at once. The person in the office next to me, Bob Briggs, he's heard so much about online teaching from me that he's teaching online this semester. And so, and I've talked to him quite a bit, and I asked him this morning, I said, Bob, what's the best thing I ever told you? And he said, it's to separate content from assessment and just work on content and then assessment. And I think once you start to break the task down like that, it's less stressful and you'll make a lot of progress. The other thing is separating assessment from lecture time allows you to expand assessment. I do more assessment in my online version of MIS 301 than any of the other instructors who teach MIS 301 in the college. And so between exams, cases, and quizzes, I have a total of 23 assessments, and the other sections range from 2 to 13. That's what James made that comment about doing, you know, don't save it all for 2 big exams, but spread it out. And pedagogically, think about, I mean, if you're going to hire a student coming out of one of these classes, Would you rather have the person who did all the quizzes in addition to the exams and the Excel cases, or would you rather have somebody who just did 2 exams? And so I think the online tools really enable us to expand our assessment and really push the students more than we could in a traditional classroom. Frankly, I'd have a tough time giving 13 quizzes and 4 exams, or 14 quizzes and 4 exams in a regular semester. I don't know how I would do it. There's nothing to stop me online. Okay, I just put up the quiz and off you go. Backup student email addresses so you can contact your students when Blackboard crashes. Well, would Blackboard ever crash? It has to. It's technology, right? So we shouldn't expect Blackboard to be up 100% of the time. I've never used any system that doesn't ever fail, right? So the question is, what are we going to do when it fails? And if your only way of communicating to your students is through Blackboard, then there's a problem, because what you're trying to tell them is Blackboard's down, all right? So back up their email addresses, and then you can send them a nice note to say, there's been an unexpected Blackboard failure, and we're going to reschedule the exam for another day. So I had, I don't know if there was a power outage on campus, but something knocked out the servers in the summertime, and I had already had about half the students finish their exams and half hadn't. And so it's real easy if you can just send them think and put their minds at ease, because they do get stressed out about it.
Could you
Mark?
tell everybody how you did that?
I think we can download their email addresses at some point in either on Black.
We could do, is Linda there? Linda will come back. We could do a little, coaching for you guys on that. Maybe we could even do a little video tutorial if we don't already, we might already have one, all I know, on how to do that. Pretty straightforward. And by the way, in that case, it was actually the University Computer Operations Center that went down. It wasn't Blackboard. It was where Blackboard lives. But anyway, Blackboard can go down. So you raise a really important point.
Right, and right. So it was on the servers, I guess, which it was residing.
It was the network.
The network. Okay.
It was on.
So manage browser failures. So anticipate a limited number of failures. Decide what your policy is going to be, how you're going to respond when that happens. I just expect, I don't know what your experience is like using internet technologies. Mine fail all the time. So I don't expect that students are going to not ever encounter that. Use Firefox rather than Internet Explorer. I'm sure have you been told that already by chance? So I didn't notice a big difference my first year, and then last summer, Internet Explorer started deleting my announcements after I typed them. So I would type up announcements, hit send out as an email, and it would just send out the subject line. And after 3 or 4 times of doing that, I decided no more Internet Explorer, because I realized it never happened in Firefox. So I don't touch Blackboard now if I'm not in Firefox. And it's just so easy to do. When you record a lecture, imagine you're talking to just one person. So I've had people tell me it's so strange to give a lecture in their office, and how do you do that when there's nobody there? I just imagine I'm having a conversation about statistics with somebody sitting next to me, or talking to somebody on the phone, and just talk in a very conversational tone. I think it makes it for a much better lecture. I had a student come in the summertime, and she asked me a question, and I started explaining it, and she said, "Wow, you sound just like you do in your videos." I said, that's what I sound like. That's what I sound like when I talk about statistics. But, you don't have to be on like you do in a classroom. You get to just start the tape and just have a nice conversation about what you like to talk about. Let's see if I can get this to go forward here. Oh, finally, there is a big payoff on the other side of the learning curve. I think the class that you're going through is just a huge advantage to you. And there's so many benefits that I've personally gotten from going through the class. So one is I've implemented online assessments in every class I teach now. I teach graduate classes on statistics, another one on operations management and supply chain, another one on business analytics. all of them have online assessments that I build in, put the quizzes on, that I never would have done had I not gone through that 100% online experience. And I do video demonstrations. So one of the things I'll be working on today is doing a video demonstration to use this Excel Miner tool to do multiple regression for my graduate students. I used to not know how to do that, but I'm sure we're all teaching classes other than the online class, and I never would have taken the time, unfortunately, to sit down and kind of learn that skill set, but now I get a big payoff from it. So let's see, I might have even done a bold on that. So I'm very happy that I participated in this process, and I think you'll get a lot of benefits besides just a one-course release or whatever the current deal is. And that's it. Questions?
What about cheating?
In terms of cheating, one of the things that I've done, and I didn't put those slides in here, is a few different things. When I build those questions in Respondus, so I typically build I build multiple versions where I'll write out my statistics question, and let's say I'm using a binomial probability distribution. I might change the number of trials slightly in one versus the other. And then in my long list of correct answers, it is the same set of answers in the same order that I used in the prior semester, but the prior semester's answer is wrong this time. But I always make sure it's present. And then I randomly assign two versions. So I change that one number, and so it might be that if you get one version, the answer is B, the other version, the answer is F, and last semester it was the answer E. And I do that so the idea is if I'm looking at old images of the questions, that if I'm just mapping up, it's going to look the same, and I'm going to select that answer. Or if I'm side by side, it's going to look the same, and I might not get that right answer. Okay? It's, you know, what can I do? The philosophy I followed is to build the best pedagogy I can and take all reasonable measures I can to try and hamper cheating. And I'm imagining that you're going to be doing 100% online, so I'm not going to present solutions that I can't use in that environment. But we have had students, you know, come to class, come to campus for the high stakes assessment. But I'm pretty aggressive in terms of manipulating the questions. So in another case, I might have them compute, say, the 75th percentile for a set of data that I present them, and I just pull out one observation. And so on this side, there's 23 observations. On this, or at random, you might have 22 observations. And depending on what you get, the answer changes. But that's been most of what I've done. And then randomly assigning questions. And then I don't let them backtrack on their questions either. So they appear in random order and they move forward. One of the things I needed to do, and I'm getting a little outside the boundaries of your question, is that in statistics, a lot of times I'm asking, I want to have a larger preamble and then ask 3 or 4 questions about it, but I don't want those scattered. So in Respondus, I build a group around those 4 questions, and then when I do random assignment, once it gets to that group, it gives them in random order within that group, and they stick together. And so that took some figuring out for me to do on that one. Nancy.
What's your policy on browser failures?
What I have, I don't have any set, I guess I do have one policy that addresses it. One is just in practice, I'm online a lot on days I give assessment. So, you know, after dinner, I'm running the check to see if I've had any failures. And most of the time, I don't. But if I did, I want to reset them right away. I give a lot of quizzes, so 13 to 14 quizzes a semester. I drop the 2 lowest scores on those. And so then when I wasn't able to reset your quiz and you're upset because you're a browser failure, I said, you know what, technology is not 100% reliable. I'm going to drop the 2 lowest quizzes, so you're not going to have your grade hurt based on that. They've been accepting of that. Now what I do for my cases, I give them all the questions in advance. They work on Excel to put the answers together, and then they have a 15-minute window to put the answers in. And that cut the failure rate almost completely to zero. Because it's not a 90-minute quiz or a 60-minute quiz, it's just 5 minutes to type in your answers. So I don't drop any cases and I don't drop any exams. Anything else? Okay, thank you so much.